Gambling tycoon Atong Ang is still at large as authorities failed to find him despite several raids over the past week. Ang is wanted over kidnapping charges in connection with the disappearance of at least 34 cockfighting aficionados between 2021 and 2022. In a radio interview on Tuesday, February 17, Interior Secretary John Remulla says 10 raids were conducted last week, but all sites yielded negative results. Remulla does not immediately detail where the raids were conducted. The Criminal Investigation and Detection Group previously said their efforts were concentrated in Metro Manila, Central Luzon, Calabar Zone, and Bicol Region. Remulla reiterates that Ang is still believed to be here in the Philippines. The Cambodian government released a statement earlier this February saying the gambling tycoon was not in their country. Last week, the Department of the Interior and local government raised the bounty for Ang to 20 million pesos. Courts in San Pablo, Laguna, Santa Cruz, Laguna, and Lipas City, Batangas have issued separate arrest warrants against Ang. The Department of Foreign Affairs pushes back against the Chinese embassy's warning that strained bilateral ties could cost millions of jobs. In a statement, the DFA says it notes with concern the embassy's remarks linking potential job losses among Filipinos to tensions in Philippine-China relations. While affirming that cooperation with all countries brings economic and cultural benefits, the department says it took strong exception to any suggestion that cooperation could be withheld as leverage or retaliation. According to the DFA, the remarks risk being perceived as coercive and could undermine dialogue. It also urges the Chinese embassy to adopt a responsible and measured tone in public exchanges. The agency says it remains committed to diplomacy to stabilize and advance bilateral relations despite profound differences. The DFA underscores that responsible dialogue should take precedence in public. Some Philippine senators have suggested declaring a Chinese diplomat persona non grata or recalling China's ambassador. The Chinese embassy in Manila earlier warned that such proposals could damage economic ties and cost millions of jobs for Filipinos if diplomatic relations were seriously harmed. Chinese embassy spokesperson Jie Lingpeng called the moves political posturing and said decisions on diplomatic status fall under the executive branch. Some lawmakers criticized the embassy's remarks as a veiled economic threat against Filipinos, especially amid ongoing tensions over maritime disputes in the West Philippine Sea. The Philippines has consistently cited its sovereign rights under the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and the 2016 Arbitral Award. This landmark ruling invalidated China's expansive claims in the South China Sea. Lawyers for the drug war victims believe no amount of shock factor in former President Rodrigo Duterte's defense can exempt him from being charged with crimes against humanity. The cases against Duterte stem from the war against illegal drugs he led, which police officers and hitmen allegedly carried out with impunity. In a press conference on Tuesday, February 17, human rights lawyer Cristina Conti notes that Duterte may present himself next week in the confirmation of charges hearing as an aging man.
Pero pinaghahandaan din po namin, at hindi lang ng mga biktima, pati ng mga advocates, ang pagharap niya bilang kakaibang tao na. At baka po ang itsura niya ay mukha po siyang ermitanyo. Ayon sa salaysay na rin ng kanyang mga kaanak. Ang kanya pong buhok ay maputi na, posibleng pinahaba. So sabi nga namin, payat na Santa Claus, paano ba ito? Yung visualization ng kung anong magiging itsura niya ay isang paghahanda sa mga sarili para maunahan mo na, mag-focus ka sa charges, hindi dun sa itsura niya.
The victims and their lawyers dismiss any notion that Duterte is senile. They cite the medical report of the panel of experts tapped by the pretrial chamber to determine whether the former president was fit to participate in the proceedings. For human rights lawyer Nery Colmenares, whatever shock and awe factor the defense will use in court does not erase the ordeal the families and relatives experienced from the killings. Colmenares has also been giving legal assistance to the drug war victims.
Ang pinaka-importante talagang magsalita dyan, hindi abogado yung biktima. At sila ang magpapatunay niyan. Kahit ano pa mang shock and awe yung gamitin nila dyan. Ang biktima nagsasabi, yung kaanak namin, pinatay, walang awa-awa, walang korte-korte, walang abo-abogado. Karumal-dumal na pinatay. So, ngayon, iyan naman ang kwento talaga dyan. Kaya tama lang na manindigan at maghanap kami ng hustisya.
Duterte is expected to appear before the chamber again for a second time for the 4-day hearings on February 23, 24, 26, and 27. The hearings will take place at the International Criminal Court in The Hague, the Netherlands, where Duterte has spent nearly a year in detention. The parties to the case will present their arguments and submit merits to the case. Duterte is charged with 3 counts of murder over the deaths of 76 individuals and attempted murder of 2 others. The Department of Education says the proposed shift to a trimester system remains under review following concerns raised by lawmakers, teachers, and other stakeholders over the proposal. In a statement on Tuesday, February 17, DepEd maintains that no final decision has been made about the proposal. Education Secretary Sani Angara earlier proposed reducing the current 4 grading period to just 3 per school year as part of a broader school calendar reform. However, the proposal was met with various reactions from the public. Some lawmakers and teachers' organizations warned about implementing the change without thorough research and consultations. Malacanang echoed the call, saying further study and dialogue would be necessary before any decision is finalized. According to DepEd, it takes the feedback seriously. The agency notes that structural reforms and long-standing issues in the country, such as classroom shortages and teacher welfare, are not mutually exclusive. The department emphasizes that the proposal remains subject to review. DepEd reaffirms that it is actively conducting consultations and will continue engaging education officials and stakeholders in the coming days. According to DepEd, the proposal aims to support broader reforms by simplifying academic planning, improving the use of instructional time, and easing workload pressures on teachers. It adds that any reform should strengthen learning continuity while improving conditions for both learners and educators.